Welcome to the On Being Human podcast, where we believe transforming ourselves can positively transform society. Your host, Brandy Fleck, has the honor of exploring the human condition with real people who bravely share their personal stories of adversity, healing, joy, and more. If you're seeking empowerment, strength, and inspiration, listen in to engage and explore tough topics that help us humanize one another, understand ourselves better, spread love, and connect.
Welcome back to another soul-exposing exploration of what it means to be human. You're listening to episode 31. Quote, I knew I wanted more kids one way or another, however it looked. I was open to adoption, I was open to fostering, I was open to meeting somebody who had children, and then also open to having my own. End quote. These are the words of Crystal Barker, this week's guest and advocate for children and families. Last week, we talked to Les Adkins, an expert traveling the country teaching corporations how to integrate millennials into the workforce. This week's guest, Crystal Barker, is a marketing executive in the healthcare industry here in Nashville. But what we're focusing on today is what she does when she's not using her MBA, obtained while working full-time as a single mother. Crystal is a mom to 2 biological children, numerous foster children, and just expanded her family with a new husband and 3 stepchildren. Congratulations, Crystal, on your recent marriage and expansion of your beautiful family. Crystal also has experience mentoring 2 children through the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Middle Tennessee program. She's also participated in advanced accreditation processes for a Davidson County elementary school. And we dive into what in Crystal's life has contributed to her compassionate nature and why and how she got involved with the foster care system, a system she had exposure to growing up due to heavy family involvement. After a divorce, Crystal moved forward with fostering as a single mother. It was no small feat. You'll want to hear Crystal describe why she did it, what it means to be a mentor, the process for becoming a foster parent, what it took to mother 5 children as a single mom working full-time, how she made foster children feel comfortable, what she learned from the experience, and why she decided to move on. We also talk about all the love that comes with it, but also the pain and grief that comes with fostering. This is a story of strength, determination, heart-based pursuits, and persistence. So stay tuned for such an interesting conversation, just full of helpful information, as well as Crystal's explanation for what it means to be a mother. It resonated with me so much, I think it will with you too. To support our efforts, you can now go to onbeinghumanpodcast.com/shop and click the Amazon banner there to do your regular shopping. At no additional charge to you, a portion of all your purchases made through that click will go directly to the production of this podcast. How easy is that? Same Amazon, same experience, same shopping you do anyways. Best of all, same prices, but you're supporting the On Being Human podcast. Again, shop Amazon at no additional cost to you at onbeinghumanpodcast.com/shop. As always, subscribe on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, leave a rating, leave a review, and you can find the show's presence on Facebook and Pinterest for now. Without further ado, let's hear from Crystal. Hi, Crystal. Welcome to the show today. I am just so excited to have you here because I feel like you're just such a kind and caring person. You are beautiful on the inside and out, and I know that you love children. And we're going to talk a little bit about your experience as a foster mom today. So first off, how are you doing? What's going on today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love your podcast and appreciate being able to be part of it. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. Well, let's let our listeners get to know you first. And can you just give them a little context of who you are today?
Sure. Today I am a single mom of 2. I'm about to be married in about 4 weeks. And with that, I'll be gaining 3 additional kids. And I'm really excited about those guys coming on. In the past, I've been a foster mom to 5. I've also been a mentor with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Middle Tennessee to 2 children. And before that, worked with the local elementary schools with the advanced accreditation for Davidson County as well as Arkansas University as well. So it's been fantastic working with young kids. It's been nice working with the teenagers, and then of course the older teens as they start to go off to college. So just a lot of enjoyment through working with each of them. They've really all filled a place in my heart.
That's amazing. Crystal, I didn't know that you did all that stuff. That is really impressive. Can you tell me a little bit more about what is the accreditation thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was actually with Tulip Grove Elementary in Davidson County, and their school went through this certain accreditation each year in order to be able to receive funds from the government, and they needed volunteers from around the community to come in and basically do the accreditation with a third party. They tended to be parents of the kids that went to school there or parents of children who used to go to school there. But it was basically a committee that came together to help improve upon the teaching, the scheduling for the students, and then they would also work with the students one-on-one.
Okay, awesome. Well, now can you tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up, and what are some of the things that you experienced growing up that contributed to your caring and compassionate nature?
I grew up in two different environments. My parents divorced when I was quite young, and my dad stayed in Detroit, and my mom moved here to Tennessee with my stepdad. And so I was able to enjoy life both in the city and then life here in Tennessee in more of a rural area between Nashville and Memphis. And so I was able to see a lot of different diversities through that, a lot of different cultures, children living in multiple environments when it came to demographic and income.
Okay.
And what I saw in Michigan, there was a lot of poverty in and around Detroit. In Tennessee, there was also a lot of poverty, but because it was more rural, it wasn't as pronounced. My mom was actually part of the foster care review board as I was growing up, and our church was involved with youth villages, which is an in-home setting for at-risk boys. So sometimes they're in the foster care system, sometimes their parents still have custody, but it's a center for them when they're needing a little bit extra help and structure in their lives. So I grew up around foster kids, and my cousin actually was a foster mom to 17 different children. And so that's where I first became aware of fostering and the great need that the community had.
Wow, okay, very cool. So you've been through some huge upheaval in the last several years with the foster system. But before we get into that, let's start from the beginning. And you mentioned a little bit about being around the foster system growing up and things like that. But what prompted you to decide to be a foster mom?
Well, I always wanted more children, and my ex-husband and I actually went through a couple of miscarriages, which ultimately led to our divorce. And I knew that I wanted more kids one way or another. My house was always the one house that all the kids came to play at.
Mm-hmm.
My girls' friends always had their friends over, and so I was always making dinner for a large group, entertaining a large group, and just really enjoyed being around the life and just the energy that kids bring. And so when I built my home, I actually built it larger than what we needed. It was just me and my two girls. But I built a 5-bedroom house, the idea that one day I would have more kids, however it looked. And I was open to adoption. I was open to fostering. I was open to meeting somebody who had children, and then also open to having my own.
Mm-hmm.
After we had gone through our divorce, it was a prime time for me to move forward as a single mom. A lot of people don't realize that you can foster as a single mother or single father. And so I moved forward as a single mother and started my training classes and was certified to become a foster mom. And that's kind of how it got started.
Wow.
One of my good friends who actually, we became great friend, she bought my old house and then rented it back to me while I was in the process of building my house. She became a foster mom with her husband at the time, and I did what was called respite for her, which is giving her a weekend to herself and taking the kids on free of charge as almost a babysitter would, and as an extension of her family so that the kids grew up having more people that loved them and took care of them. And then the foster parents could get a break, which was much needed. She had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And I think that accompanied with the fact that, I had the space and I had the time and I wanted to do more than just mentor. I always felt I could make a bigger difference and a bigger impact if I could just bring the kids home with me than seeing them once a week at school. So that's really kind of how it began.
Well, that's pretty cool. Gosh, I'm really enjoying learning all this about you. Two things that you mentioned that I'm curious about. Could you give us a little more information about what mentoring is, and then also a little bit more information about the training process that you went through to be certified to be a foster mom?
Absolutely. So mentoring was with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Middle Tennessee, as I mentioned, and you are placed at a poverty-stricken school here in the Metro Nashville area. And basically what it is it's a program to introduce children to a safe adult who they can count on visiting them once a week to help them with family issues, to help them with sometimes school and social issues that they might be running into. And it allows for the child and the adult to create a friendship, almost like a big sister, little sister would be, and somebody to look out for them. So the first one that I fostered, she was a middle school student, and she was having problems. She was cutting herself. She was being bullied online. She was failing her classes because she couldn't see, but she didn't have anyone advocating for her that she needed glasses, that she needed restrictions on her computer so that these bullies couldn't reach her at home. Nobody was really checking up on her, and she had a mom who worked 3 jobs, and unfortunately she was raising herself, and so she would come home and have all this pain inside and nowhere to turn. And so it was an opportunity to really work with her one-on-one and to have the opportunity to give her somebody who would listen just to her and somebody who would advocate for her in the classroom and with her teachers.
Well, that's amazing. That's awesome. So you mentioned you said you had 5 foster children at one point?
I did. Oh, and you had asked what the process was. I forgot to answer that too.
Oh, yeah.
The process is roughly 5 months of classes. You meet once a week at one of the facilities for training. Then trainings are about 4 to 5 hours per time that you meet. So I would tend to go on Saturdays from, say, 9 to 1 or 9 to 2.
Okay.
And you just learn a lot about why the children are removed from their families, what they're looking for from a foster parent. The very first thing is always reunification. So the system really looks to give the parents the resources they need while putting the children in a safe environment so the kids can continue to thrive and grow while the parents are getting classes that they need or addiction help, or, while they may be finishing up a jail sentence, or, just a zillion reasons why they can't fully parent to their capacity at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just focuses on getting the children back home, but in the meantime, allowing the parents to get back on their feet while the children are in a safe environment. And so after you go through the classes, which also includes administering medicine and CPR, you go through a home study where you have a home study writer come into your home. They look through your home. You go through an intensive interviewing, and it's about 10 hours that you spend with your home study writer, child-proofing your home and locking up any guns, medications, anything that could potentially cause harm to a child who has not been parented the way that you or I may have parented our children from the very beginning. They may have had very little supervision, and they may be more apt to getting into the medicine cabinet or picking up a gun than, say, another child who's been taught to stay away from certain things.
Gotcha. Okay. So now, the upheaval that we referred to earlier sort of surrounded 2 boys that you fostered.
Mm-hmm.
How did those boys get placed with you, and what was that whole process?
So there's very little that I can say about their case in particular.
Sure.
I can say they were removed for environmental neglect, meaning that their home was not in a condition for them to thrive in. When CPS removes them, the first thing they do is they get them checked in. They do a friends and family worksheet to find next of kin for the children to go stay with somebody that they know. And next of kin can refer to either an aunt or uncle, it could be a grandfather or grandmother, or it could even be a Sunday school teacher or a kindergarten teacher that they're close with. Anybody that the child has a previous child-adult relationship with, that's considered a healthy environment. If nobody is identified, then they start dialing from the placement sheets, and all certified foster parents, are placed on this placement list. And they just start dialing, and they were from out of county, which means that nobody within their county had an opening. So then they start dialing for the next county over, and I was 2 counties over from where the boys were originally from.
Okay, and now how long did you have them?
We had them almost a year.
Okay. And what was it like just having the boys there in addition to your 2 biological girls? You know, I imagine life was fun, but what were some things you guys went through?
Oh, it was fabulous. They were absolutely amazing boys. And then in the middle of that, we had a 14-year-old foster girl come in as well, and she was here for about 5 months. And so, I went from a single mom of 2 to a single mom of 5, and that in itself was a lot of juggling. I think the hardest part, as any working parent knows, is just trying to get to daycare on time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my girls are a little bit older. They're 13 and 16. And so I've not done the daycare rush in a while. And, coming from Franklin to Mount Juliet was quite a hike. So getting them to and from daycare, I would say, was probably the biggest challenge.
Gotcha.
And then with foster care, you have people in and out of your home all the time. So we had their caseworker in and out. We had the foster support caseworker in and out. You can also have the children's attorney in your home. Sometimes the courts appoint a CASA worker for you. They might be in and out of your home. And there are a lot of visits that the children are scheduled to go on to, whether it's doctor, dental, parental visits. Thankfully, the boys are placed together, but if children are not placed together, they have sibling visits as well. And the visits with the parents can be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So it was a time that was very busy in our lives, and we were either trying to juggle just normal daily activities or trying to juggle all the needs of the state in terms of what the boys had coming. So there was always a child family placement meeting, and that occurred every about 4 weeks or so, and that's where everybody gets together, the children's attorneys, the parents' attorneys, the CASA worker, if there is one, the caseworkers, the foster parents, and they all get into a room and talk about what's been done on the case, what next steps are, if it's going to stay reunification or if it's going to move towards termination of parental rights.
Okay. That is all very informative. Thank you for sharing that. So how did you bond with your foster kids and sort of make them feel at home? What are some examples of things you did?
They were very little when they came into the home. They were 8 months and 2 years. So they did not have quite an understanding of what was going on. One thing that I did at one of the first visits is I took a picture of mom and dad with the boys, and I had that picture framed next to the older one's bed. And we would talk about mommy and daddy at bedtime before we'd say prayers and read books, and they'd get their cuddles and tucked in. I'd take the picture out and put it next to their plates when they were having dinner, and we'd talk about having dinner with mommy and daddy, just to keep their parents very real in their lives. They had phone calls with their parents, and we tried to FaceTime as often as possible so that they could see their parents. But the rest of the time, I was just mom to them. And I think, anyone who's been a mother to a child that is not biologically theirs knows that it's both, a term for that biological connection, but it's also a term for all of the work that goes into and all the love that goes into a child. So in mothering them, I treated them like I treat my own and just loved them and took good care of them, and they very quickly became very important members of our family.
Gosh, I love what you just said, that mothering is also a term for the work that goes into and all the love that goes into that child. That's just awesome.
Once you've had both, I don't think that you can really tell a difference. And I would think that anybody who's adopted would say that their children are, loved equally and wanted equally. And anybody who's who's been adopted hopefully feels that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you went through sort of an adoption process, but you don't have the boys anymore. So if you're able to, can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so the case actually turned to TPR, which is the termination of parental rights, and we were starting the process to adopt the children when DCS actually realized that they made a mistake in the case and they needed to return the boys back home. And so it was very sudden. It was not something anybody saw coming, and they were transported back to their county, and at the same time their family lost their home due to a foreclosure, and so the boys were actually placed back into foster care without anybody ever letting us know.
Oh,
They have stayed in foster care, and they have just been sent through an ICPC, which is the interstate compact agreement that allows children to move from state to state within the foster system, and they're now with a family member in another state.
okay. What did you go through emotionally and
It was just absolutely horrendous. Thankfully, we have a really good relationship with their biological family. I'm actually friends with the mom, and we were able to exchange messages about where the boys are, how they're doing, how the parents are doing, what kind of support they need, and just being able to be there for the parents. And I think a lot of foster parents don't realize it going in, but foster care tends to be a cycle of poverty or abuse or neglect. And oftentimes these parents haven't had the love or the proper attention shown to them, proper caring even as they grew up. And so they're repeating what they know, and it doesn't make them bad people whatsoever. It just, they live what they've learned, and they're teaching their children that as well. And so foster care really works to break that cycle of abuse. And oftentimes you find that you're supporting the biological family just as much as you're supporting the children in terms of being a friend and an advocate for them, listening to them confide about what they're going through, being on the other side of DCS, how much they miss their children. You know, a lot of them are very, very good parents, and they love their kids, but they're just repeating what they know, and unfortunately, it's not a healthy environment for their kids.
Gotcha. So what impact did the whole experience have on your two girls?
They actually learn to be more nurturing. They learn to be more giving of themselves, to put others' needs ahead of their own. They look for opportunities to help people. A few days ago, my 16-year-old ran out into traffic and stopped traffic, which I would not recommend, but to help an old lady cross the street, and she was in the crosswalk, but nobody would stop for her.
Oh.
And they just look for opportunities now. They realize that not everybody has had the same opportunities that they have had. Some have had more, some have had less, but I think it's really opened their eyes to not everybody you meet lives in the same kind of environment that you live in, has the same kind of lifestyle that you have, they don't always have access to clean clothing or food in their fridge. And my mom also volunteers with the food bank in her town, and my girls have both played a big part in volunteering there as well, to be able to help families pack up the groceries that they're entitled to. And I think it transforms the way that you view the world and you view your part in the world, that, you're not just a giver, but you're a taker of part of the greater good.
Yeah, very cool. So I assume you guys all went through sort of a grieving process. Is that true?
Absolutely, yeah. After all of them, we certainly did. And the girls that we had, they were 8 and 14, and they were in, all kids come into foster care, no fault of their own, but their situation was a little different. Their mom was on a ventilator fighting for her life, and they didn't have any extended family.
Oh, wow.
And so they came into foster care, and those situations happen as well. There's not abuse, there's not neglect, there's just one parent, and the one parent has a medical need or something has happened where they're unable to care for the children and they don't have anyone to reach out to. And so we had those girls for about a week until somebody was located, an extended family member.
That just sounds so scary.
Yeah, and it's very scary. The younger girl was in a wheelchair, and her older sister was taking care of her every need. But they were missing school, and there was no food in the house, and nobody to help them, no neighbor to turn to, and they didn't live in the best part of town. And so they just stayed indoors until a teacher realized, that they had both been missing, and they were able to contact the authorities. So there are all kinds of situations in which the children do come into care, but like I said, they were only here for a few days, and we grieved them. Our foster daughter was here for about 4 to 5 months, and it was really hard to see her go. But the boys, it's probably been a year now, and my heart still grieves over them. And the fact that they're so far away and we won't, the fact that they didn't go home and they didn't come back to us, I think was the hardest part.
Yeah. Was it just a mistake that they didn't come back to you?
After they left, we were under the impression that they had gone home, and so we went ahead and closed our house after that, meaning that we were not open to any foster care placement.
Ah, gotcha.
And when the parents' house went into foreclosure, that's when the boys were not reunited. But instead of reaching out to us and allowing us to reopen our home, they just moved forward with somebody closer in the distance to the family.
Gotcha. So why did you decide to close your house?
I think just all the turmoil that we experienced at the hands of DCS. I want to stay very neutral about the organization. We had some great workers that we worked with. We had some terrible ones that we worked with. But what a lot of people don't realize is that your entire family is at the hands of DCS, whether you can travel, whether you can go out of state, whether you can leave the country. If you can leave the children with a babysitter, you're basically ruled by the system the entire time that you have the children. While a lot of that's good and it puts the children's interests first, it can take 3 to 4 months to get approval to take the children out of state, for instance, just across state lines for a family vacation.
Gotcha.
Taking them, on a cruise or a family holiday that would be out of the country is nearly impossible. And those are a lot of the vacations that we went on. And it was a situation where, you couldn't take the boys or any of them. And so it changes your lifestyle quite a bit. You have to keep a medication record. So even if the child has a fever, you have to give a medication record to the state showing what times you gave Tylenol, how much Tylenol you gave when you took the child to the doctor. Then you have to take another form and have the doctor complete it while you're there. The child can only miss so many days of daycare if they're on a voucher with the state before their spot is removed. If they have a fever, they automatically have to miss 2 days. So there are just so many rules that go along with it that you don't expect, and that you almost take for granted in parenting your own child. And you're asked to parent these children like your own, and at the same time you're being watched so much more closely than you would the most careless babysitters out there.
Sure.
And it's you're treated not as part of the process and as the ones who know the children the most. You're treated as almost a pawn in the system. And it's threatened that the children can be moved at any time, and anyone who's fostered knows that's always a threat in the air, that you never know how long you're going to have the kids, and the case can change directions at any moment, and it can do a 180 at any moment. They were going to adoption, they all of a sudden went to reunification, then they went right back to foster care. So you don't know, and you have no control over these little lives that you love so much, and I think that's the hardest part.
Gotcha. And I guess you just needed a break, huh?
Not only a break, but I think after seeing what the system was actually doing to the families and the children, I realized it wasn't something I could be part of anymore.
Gotcha. So you're not going to open your house again then?
No,
Okay.
no. But at the same time, we don't have the room now with my fiance and his kids. I can say that each of the bedrooms has held somebody that we've loved very much, and it's hard to see them empty after the kids go. It's been really hard.
Yeah.
But it's also been nice to look at each bedroom and know, how much life and love was lived in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, so congratulations on your recent engagement and the fact that your family is expanding again. And so by the time we air this episode, you will actually be married. I just want to throw that out there for the listeners.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So I would love to talk a little bit about the support system that you have in place, or what type of things did you do to start the healing process each time a child left your home, and especially in the end there when you were impacted? What did you do to try and just heal?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. In terms of support, there's a private Facebook group for foster parents. There's one for those just in Tennessee. There's one for those in and around Nashville. And I think it really helped to lean into those who've been through it before, who have grieved their own foster children leaving. I leaned into my kids a lot. I'm really big into boxing. That helped release a lot of the anger that I had over the injustices that were happening to the boys. If they couldn't go home, I didn't want them to have to be placed in another home, and then another home. By the time they got to a relative's house, they were in 4 foster homes, and they're only 2 and 4 now, and it's just heartbreaking. And I did a lot of meditation and yoga just to help center up and refocus. And then I think just trying to stay in contact with the family and support mom and dad and all they were going through. I knew, as bad as it was for us, how much more worse it was for them, and all that they were going through and not having their boys in their arms every night, and how badly they were fighting for the boys. And it seemed like they just couldn't catch a break. Every step forward was a few steps back for them. And I think that's true with a lot of cases. And the parents are trying very hard, and it just seems like it's stacked against them.
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier that you're still sort of grieving. So if you're not fully healed, what gives you hope that you can still have a joyful life? And what are some things you do to keep moving forward in a productive way and things like that?
Sure. I think just continuing to be involved in other kids' lives, whether it's my fiance's kids or the neighbors' kids, just continuing to reach out and being there for those who need it. I think I'm probably going to start mentoring very soon again for Big Brothers, Big Sisters. That was something that I really enjoyed, and just looking for ways to support other families with their kids, whether it's free babysitting or just giving the parents a night to themselves. Making a dinner and bringing it over, picking up groceries. There's all these things that we can do for other parents that honestly we don't do, and there's such a need for it. And I remember coming home from work and being so tired and having to get a babysitter so that I could go get groceries after I got my kids to sleep. And getting groceries, until 11 o'clock, midnight, and then coming home and studying for my MBA until 3, and then getting up at 6 and starting all over again. And it's hard. And now we have the wonderful conveniences of grocery delivery, but it's not affordable to everybody. And as anyone knows, it's really hard to go to the grocery store with, a hungry toddler and a preschooler, and get groceries after work when you've been going all day and they've been going all day.
Absolutely.
So I think just looking to your neighbors to see how you can help, looking to a coworker to see how you can help. Those are all ways that I try to stay involved. And my sweet spot has always been kids. Some people it's animals. Some people have a knack for really helping with the elderly. But children have always really spoken to my heart, and I've always wanted to work with them in whatever capacity. but never felt like teaching was the right capacity for me. It always felt like it was going to be one-on-one.
Gotcha.
And those are the opportunities that I've been blessed to have had.
Awesome, Crystal. Very cool. Tons of great takeaways there. This might sound cliche, but it does take a village, and I definitely appreciate what you just said, and I will put all these takeaways in the show notes for our listeners. If you could tell the boys one thing right now, what would it be?
How loved they are, how loved they will always be. They and their parents will always have a place in our family, and they'll always be our family.
Aw. And what did you learn from the whole overall experience of fostering?
I think that I was always capable of more. I think sometimes as a mom, you're so tired and you just want to crash, and you want dinner to make itself, and somebody else to bathe the kids and put them to bed. And when it's just you're capable of more, and you're able to get up and go do it anyway because the kids need it. And I think on the days that I felt that I had nothing left to give, that I always found that there was more because the kids deserved it.
Awesome. Very cool. And last but not least, that's something that I ask everyone on the show is, what does being human mean to you?
I would say the ability to look beyond oneself and help another just because you are both part of the human race. To be able to see the humanity in somebody else, to be able to know that there's nobody that you wouldn't love if you only knew their story.
Yes. Oh, that is so awesome. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, is because everybody has a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And once you know what it is, it really changes the way you view that person. And, it's really easy these days to sit behind a computer keyboard and judge somebody, or behind your phone. But, once you take the time to really deep dive and to get to know a person and put that energy there, you have so much more in common than you would ever think. And I think that's what we're missing, and that's why we're so divided sometimes amongst ourselves, is because we're looking at what divides us instead of what unites us.
Yeah. Well, Crystal, it has been an absolute pleasure today to listen to part of your story. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Brandy. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I appreciate so much being able to come on your show.
You guys, isn't Crystal just so awesome? She is such an amazing example of how to advocate for children and how to make an impact in an area that is close to her heart. For all the cool stuff Crystal mentions, go to onbeinghumanpodcast.com/episodes/031. Be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts so others like yourselves can find the show, and so we can continue to grow and serve you with valuable content and new heart-based offerings in the future. Plus, I would love to highlight your review on a podcast episode so you get a shout out for listening. Sign up to join in this conversation with me at onbeinghumanpodcast.com. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Tune in weekly at onbeinghumanpodcast.com for more soul-exposing explorations of what it means to be human. Until next week, love to you all.